Representative Byron Donalds, you're here representing Florida in Orlando, Florida. And today at CPAC, you actually talked about criminal justice at a panel. In that same vein, can you talk a little bit about the left's defund the police movement and their push for that? Why do you think they're pushing for that?
The left has this propensity to always push for policies that make no sense. And the reality is that if you defund the police, what you're going to do is hurt minority communities. You're going to hurt the very communities that you say you want to help. Now, if you talk to them in detail, they'll say they want to put it into people who have training in mental health issues and so on and so forth. But when you take officers off the street, you make communities less safe. That's just the way it is. What you actually do is you decrease wait times, or response times, excuse me. And so where are those response times going to be made up? Nowhere. If it takes you now 3 minutes to get an officer to your home and you dial 911, you defund the police, what's it going to take, 10? You know how much damage can happen to a family in 10 minutes? That's why this is one of the most radical policies I've ever heard of. And that's also why actually most minority people, black people and brown people, don't support defunding the police because they understand how important the police are to their communities and to their safety.
So speaking of you mentioning that, so the Black Lives Matter movement, some of that has also been related to defunding the police, and they've kind of pushed for that and said they're protesting police brutality. Do you agree with that movement and their message that they're putting out?
No, I believe they're a Marxist movement. Even their founders, before they scrubbed their website, when people started looking at it, but their founders have their ideology is born out of black liberation theology, which is a strain of Marxism. I do not support that organization. Now, if you want to talk about protesting against police brutality and protesting peacefully, I think all Americans support that. You know, what we want to do is have communities where our police are respected. They do the jobs that they're supposed to do. Sometimes things can get rough, but at the same time, we don't want to condone, officers going past the badge and actually harming citizens, even in the process of arresting them. Nobody wants that either. But there's ways to accomplish this. It's actually working with your police chief, not trying to go in and gut their budgets. It's working with local sheriffs on community policing programs, which, by the way, a lot of sheriffs and police chiefs in our country have already been doing. They've already been doing this work. It's just that they don't talk about it on MSNBC or CNN. So we act like it doesn't exist when that's not true. Because if you talk to them, they've already been dealing with these many issues for decades in our communities. They've been trying to build that rapport with citizens. I think that work needs to continue.
Okay, and so you now are in Congress, you're a freshman member of Congress, and you are a Republican, so you're in the minority party now, and the Senate is a minority party for Republicans, as well as the presidency. So now that Democrats are in complete control in Washington, what will be your advice to the Republican Party on where we go from here and what our future looks like?
You push a bold agenda, a conservative agenda, and you stand by it. And every time we see a piece of liberal policy, you oppose it on grounds of principle and on grounds of fact. That's just what you saw out of the Republican side of the House of Representatives when it came to the COVID-19 wasteful spending stimulus bill. Nothing to do with COVID-19, 9% only goes to that. Somebody's really happy over there. But what you realize is that you have to put forward a bold agenda that's unapologetic. You have to demonstrate to the American people what you stand for, not just what you're against. And I think that's the path forward for Republicans.
Okay, and then one more question, just because you mentioned the coronavirus bill, and you mentioned some of the extra, or a lot of the extra pork, I guess, if you will, that was put into it. Why do you think Democrats added so much and tacked so much onto it? All Republicans voted against it. Tell us what happened there.
Oh, because they wanted to get their wish list out of it. They didn't want to let a crisis go to waste. That's why they tacked so much onto it. And in order to get some of the Democrat members to vote for this bill, they had to keep putting stuff into it. Let's just be perfectly clear. That's what happened. There's no reason why we couldn't do the money to get shots in arms, the money to actually help people who have lost their job through COVID-19, not just sending checks out to everybody, because the truth of the matter is everybody who's going to get a check not everybody who's going to get a check is on unemployment. That is not true. A lot of people are going to get checks who are working right now today. This is the way they do things. There was no way to get support for that monstrosity unless you were buying off members of Congress. And that's why the thing is almost $2 trillion.